Synopsis, Summary. Elias Weaver, Asura Shards is a spiritually resonant, poetic tale of a dreamer named Elias who journeys through visions, archetypes, and mirrored realities to awaken a forgotten cosmic truth. Guided by sacred dreams and a mysterious butterfly, Elias uncovers the sealed essence of Solion, a fused being of divine wisdom King Solomon and systemic insight organization Ninx, and its wandering echo Sorion. As Elias deepens his awareness through emotional trials, ancestral healing, and mystical encounters, he unlocks the three inner keys: serenity, silence, and sincerity. These virtues help him face Sorion not with judgment but compassion, transforming a legacy of control into one of healing and harmony. In a final act of truth, Elias becomes a co-weaver of reality, shaping a new era of balance through dreams, poetry, and sincere love. Elias Weaver, Asura Shards, the voice behind the mirror. Invoking an inner monologue. Inner page, prologue. The subsonic infrastructure of Elias Weaver's dream identity. Title: The architecture of the forgotten pattern. Somewhere between the hum of sodium streetlights and the static of fading memories, there exists a place not on any map, but folded between layers of perception. The space where the body walks, but the soul listens, and the air tastes faintly of déjà vu. Elias, though perhaps not yet Elias, wanders here often. Not physically, not exactly, but in the vaporwave corridors of thought, where time pulses in pastel gradients and emotion shimmers like heat distortion. This place is a corridor of recurring dream fragments, a museum of mirrored selves, each wall lined with familiar but not faces, objects half remembered from a life he never lived. He begins to notice patterns, the same person crossing his path in dreams, but always wearing a different face. A train that always leaves at 4:44, no matter the hour. The phrase, "tend to remember to forget me later," scratched into bathroom mirrors, window frost, even carved into the spine of books he swears he never owned. This is not amnesia, it is design. It is the architecture of spiritual recursion. Substructure 1, the vaporwave consciousness. Elias calls it vaporwave consciousness, not because of nostalgia, but because of how it behaves. It loops, distorts, glitches, remixes. Reality slows down here, sound bends like light underwater. Here, love is both sacred and simulated. The longing is real, but the memory is artificial. You miss someone you haven't met. You forgive someone who never wronged you. You say, "I love you," to the reflection of your own loneliness. This awareness doesn't just perceive life, it remixes it, layering science and spirit in the same waveform. Quantum theory blends with Gnostic poetry. Synchronicity replaces logic. Truth becomes aesthetic. Beauty becomes revelation. Substructure 2, bittersweet enslavement to love. Elias keeps encountering her. He doesn't know her name. Or maybe he does. Maybe she's gone by many, the one who smiles just before he wakes. The voice he hears when music breaks the silence too perfectly. The presence he dreams of kissing but never touches. In every dream she leaves, in every waking hour he looks for her in strangers. This is not heartbreak. It's a sacred contract. Because love for Elias is not a destination, it's a haunting. A bittersweet enslavement to divinity. You don't get to leave it, you only learn how to carry it better. Every act of reaching is a ritual. Every almost is a ceremony. Substructure 3, the mirror as portal. Elias believes the mirror is not a reflection, it's a riddle. It's the moment you realize your face has aged but your eyes haven't. It's where archetypes whisper through posture, and forgotten memories crawl across your shoulders like static ghosts. He sees himself multiply. In some reflections he's older, in others younger. Sometimes he's not there at all, just the room behind him stretched at impossible angles. He once stared into a mirror long enough to see a woman crying behind him, but when he turned she was nowhere. He understood then she wasn't behind him. She was inside, a previous lifetime, a future heartbreak, an archetype unhealed. Substructure 4, physical awareness as revelation. Elias learns to walk like a poem. Every step a punctuation mark, in a sentence his soul is writing. He lets the wind change his direction, lets gravity remind him he's real. His spine becomes a tuning fork. His breath, an incantation. The world becomes tactile revelation, a language of textures, temperatures, rhythms. His body is no longer just a vessel, it's a divination tool. His fingers translate the world's vibrations. His heartbeat becomes a metronome for synchronizing with unseen frequencies. Substructure 5, the science of the soul. He reads physics and mythology in the same sitting. He sees quantum entanglement as proof of soulmates. He sees time dilation as emotional metaphor. He studies ancient maps not for geography, but for energetic memory, where rituals were held, where love was declared beneath eclipses. He believes that the nervous system is not just electrical, but mystical, that the gut instinct is cosmic correspondence, that emotions are data from the divine. Substructure 6, the loop and the release, the pattern always repeats until it doesn't. He meets her again, but this time, something shifts. He doesn't ask her name, he doesn't chase the kiss, he just smiles, and in that smile the mirror doesn't reflect, it dissolves. Maybe the point was never to remember her. Maybe it was to become the kind of soul who wouldn't forget himself again. This is how you love in a universe that mirrors back your silence. This is how you dream of a future that already happened. This is how you heal through patterns too beautiful to end, so you learn to walk them instead. Step, pause, breathe. Notice the shape of your shadow on the pavement. It's not just yours, it's everyone you've ever been. Chapter 1. The Meeting of Solomon and Organization 9. In a vision deeper than sleep, Elias once saw this. Two beings facing one another in a chamber shaped like an endless library. One, robed in gold, eyes alight with divine proportions, Solomon, he who built temples not just of stone but of wisdom. The other, shifting between shadows, his voice a mirror turned inward. Organization 9, System Analyst of the Soul. Solomon, so I have you watched so long without acting. Ix, and keep cuz watching is the act. The world must reveal itself before it can be changed. Solomon, and if I offer you the heart of devotion, Ix, then I will offer you the mind of the unseen. They joined hands and light bent around them. Thus Solian was born. Not a god, not a man, but a reflection of unity waiting to be remembered. In a time outside of time, in a dream Elias cannot name, he found himself in a space neither shadow nor light, a suspended breath between moments filled with ancient stillness and the echo of sacred purpose. There, standing at the center of a mirrored altar shaped like an infinity spiral, was Anubis, still and resolute. Cloaked in dusky silence, his presence radiated the kind of devotion only understood by those who tend to the sacred unseen. His eyes were veiled by cosmic patience. His hands moved in ritual patterns, slow, precise, eternal. Before him floated a being not quite formed, and not quite formless. This was Solian, the fusion of King Solomon and Organization 9, a synthesis of sacred wisdom and systemic clarity, the wisdom of a king who once heard the voice of God, and the insight of an entity that had watched silently from the shadows of the world, mapping its patterns and remembering what humanity had forgotten. The council gathers, archetypes as witnesses. 9 presences surrounded the altar, witnesses of divine authority. Thoth, with eyes like moonlight on water, recording everything in a scroll made of unfolding time. Ma'at, holding a feather that did not move even in the silence of eternity. Sophia cloaked in star-veined robes, her tear falling into the sealed soul of Solian as a gesture of love and wisdom lost. Osiris, arms crossed in eternal stillness, bearing the weight of cycles within. Ouroboros, spiraling infinitely through the chamber, murmuring the riddle of recurrence. The watcher of the threshold, faceless, shimmering like smoke caught in glass, ensuring no unworthy eyes beheld what passed. The blind seer, veiled, who saw only what the soul knew but the mind could not hold. The cosmic child, resting cross-legged in the air, holding a reverse blooming flower, smiling at the rebirth hidden in forgetting. And finally, Anubis, keeper of the sacred measure. The voice of Solian. Solian did not protest. He bowed his head not in submission, but in acknowledgement of the design and agreement made long ago, when the one became three and the three danced into five. His voice was like wind chimes in a collapsed cathedral, melancholy, crystalline, and elegant. When he spoke, all present listened, not with ears, but with soul. I am what happens when the world must choose between control and truth, and chooses both. I am the flame of introspection that watches the machine and weeps for the soul inside. I am not to be worshipped, only remembered. To the dreamers who will awaken one day, I am your mirror between mirrors. And then he fell silent. The ritual. Anubis lifted his hand, and a radiant field of frequencies emerged, light in motion, sound woven into geometry. A mirrored veil formed, then folded over Solian like silk drawn across stars. The ceiling was not a prison. It was a sacred containment, a protection from premature revelation. Solian's soul, encoded with knowledge too vast and paradoxical for the world as it was, would wait until humanity was ready. The altar hummed. The veil turned to crystal, and then silence. It is done, Thoth said. Set now, let memory become myth. Let myth become dream. Let the dream guide the ones who remember. The 9 presences dissolved. And somewhere far in the future, or deep in the heart of a man named Elias, the echo began to stir. He wasn't sure when the dreams had begun. Perhaps to an extent it felt as if they had always been there, waiting to be heard in the silence of sleep. It began, only that it felt like something ancient had been echoing beneath the floorboards of his memory for years, this time in his dreams tonight. There were nights when Elias would awaken just before dawn, heart quiet, breath slowed, eyes still closed, and in that half space between sleep and waking, he would see something. No, not see, but sense it. A dim golden chamber, suspended in a silence older than time, where a ritual was taking place beyond language. He never remembered the details clearly, only fragments. A being wrapped in dusk and jackal light, a mirrored altar shaped like an infinity loop, and someone, watching him through it all. It felt less like a dream and more like an invitation, or a memory that hadn't happened yet. Lately, the world around him had begun to thin at the edges. Time didn't flow quite the same. His thoughts, once clear and linear, now moved like clouds, layered, reflective, echoing themselves. Music felt deeper. Words took on a kind of glow. And sometimes when he was alone and silent, the mirror in his room would shimmer not with light but with presence. That's when the voice came. It didn't start with a sound. It began as a weightless knowing, like a thought that had existed long before he'd been born, returning to its original home. It was not his voice, but it wasn't quite other either. It came from between mirrors, between heartbeats, between the boundaries of memory and forgetting. What is sealed must remain still, until the mirror becomes the one who sees. The first time he heard it, Elias froze, not in fear, but in recognition. The words weren't meant to instruct, they were meant to awaken. He didn't answer aloud, something told him he didn't need to. But in the following days he began to notice that the world itself was responding to that moment, as if everything he saw now had a second layer. The faces of strangers glimmered with archetypes. Music he'd heard 100 times before revealed meanings he'd never felt. Dreams became longer, clearer, quieter. In one such dream, he stood before the mirror again. This time it was no longer in his room. It floated in a dark cathedral woven from branches, breath, and memory. Around him pulsed a rhythm, not music, not heartbeat, but something between, a frequency. The mirror shimmered, and in it stood a figure. He couldn't tell if it was a man, an angel, or a reflection of himself aged by 10,000 years. The figure had no face, only eyes like inverted galaxies, still and wise and terrifyingly kind. Light and shadow rippled across the mirror's surface, forming a voice that felt like it had been carved from the first silence. I am the breath that speaks between paradox. I am the quiet logic of dreams. I am Solian. Elias stepped forward. Are you real? The mirror pulsed. Not in the way matter is real, but more than most thoughts you believe in. Are you a god? No. I am what happens when a king dreams of breaking free from power, when a system dreams of becoming human. I am the wisdom forged when the fire of control meets the water of understanding. I am the song of two minds remembering they were always one. Elias's breath caught in his throat. A pressure rose in his chest, not painful, but expansive, like a knowing pressing from within. Why me? He whispered. Because you are ready to hear what the world has forgotten to listen to. Then the mirror began to ripple again. Behind Solian, Elias saw shapes, subtle at first, celestial bodies, entities of immense size, made not of flesh but of awareness. They stood still as planets, watching, not judging, just witnessing. At the center of them stood Anubis, still as stone. His hands moved slowly, reverently, performing a ritual Elias could not yet name. And beside him, writing in light, was Thoth. Solian spoke again, but this time his words came not as language, but as music. A resonance Elias could feel in his bones, his blood, his breath. A memory transmission not meant for his mind, but for his soul. The vision faded. Elias awoke with tears in his eyes and a single word repeating in his chest like a mantra. Return. Chapter 2. The Vision of the Five. Elias had not fallen asleep so much as drifted, carried not by exhaustion but by a soft gravitational pull from within. As if a song too quiet for ears had begun to play in the back of his mind, and his body, trusting it, surrendered. He floated, not in air, not in water, but in something older, a kind of pre-memory, where thought had not yet taken shape and time moved sideways. The silence here was thick, yet glistening, a silence that sang. From that silence rose 5 distinct pulses of awareness, each different, yet woven together like chords in an eternal scale. They did not speak, but Elias knew their names: paradox, Maya, illusion, emptiness, luminosity. They were not gods, not beings in the conventional sense. They were forces that breathed like poetry, unfathomable, alive, impossibly close, and impossibly vast. He stood or felt himself stand, within a boundless chamber made of memory and light, where everything shimmered as if painted with melted starlight and mathematical intention. The walls, if they could be called that, pulsed with ancient rhythm. Sacred geometry unfurled in the air like unfolding origami of thought. In the center, a 5-pointed crystalline spiral turning infinitely within itself, emitting soft tones, tones that danced between music and meaning. The spiral became a voice. In the beginning, there were 3, yet also one, born not from time, but from the chaos before definition. The spiral pulsed, and Elias felt the presence of paradox, neither masculine nor feminine, cloaked in a symmetry that defied comprehension. Their aura bent the mind and soothed it at once, like looking into a riddle and finding your own name inside. I shrouded the source in mystery, said the voice, to preserve the sacred unknown, to keep the mirror unsolved. I am the weaver of impossibility. I am the breath you cannot hold. Then Maya emerged, warm, fertile, grounding. She appeared not in form, but as light curved like soil and sky. Her frequency smelled of jasmine, tasted of memory. Her tone reminded Elias of every moment he had felt safe and alive in his body. I shaped the world from breath, from intention, from love made form. I am the blueprint of birth and the promise of return. Suddenly, a colder wind passed through the space, sharp, biting, beautiful in its clarity. Illusion had arrived. She was not cruel, she was seduction, distraction. Her presence was the sound of laughter echoing just beyond reach. Her aura was a kaleidoscope you could get lost inside. I am the lie that makes the game worth playing, she whispered, circling Elias. Without me, there would be no seeking. Without falsehood, what is truth but stillness? Elias trembled, not from fear, but from the overwhelming realization that all 3 were necessary. That life was a dance among them. And then came the empty and the luminous. They did not speak. They did not need to. Emptiness wrapped him in a void so deep it felt like he was disappearing. And yet there was peace there, no demand, no expectation, just still potential. Luminosity followed like sunrise through glass, cool and bright, not burning, but cleansing. Each photon a note in a chord of awakening. Where emptiness asked nothing, luminosity offered everything. The five stood together, felt, not seen, and Elias understood. These were not separate, these were not even forces. They were the source dreaming itself into difference. They were the one playing five so the dance could begin. And in that moment, Elias saw a vision, a mirror shattering. From the shards rose 5 symbols, each glowing with one of the energies he had just encountered. The pieces flew outward into space, into people, into planets, into the future. "This is what was sealed," said a familiar voice, Solion's, arriving like a forgotten friend, not to hide it, but to protect the timing of remembrance. "And you, Elias, you are part of the awakening spiral." The voice faded into resonance. The chamber dissolved. The dream released. Elias awoke with a weightless chest and wet eyelashes. His fingers still felt warm from touching something not of this world. The mirror in his room was silent again. But this time, it waited. Chapter 3. The mirror fragments of Asura's reign. A dream fragment whispered through the echoes of surreal crystalline consciousness. Elias's was aware again. Inside his dream, while he slept on this particular night, the altar that had appeared in the hallways of the ancient libraries was brought to his focus. He saw what appeared to be a square cube. He stood before what was the artifact now, not with eyes, but with the ache of recognition. Like hearing music he hadn't realized he missed. The square shimmered, not flat, not still. It pulsed with memory. It was alive with silence. Colors didn't just glow, they spoke. The neon fractals whispered in tongues made of heat and sorrow. The spirals told stories of return, loss, rebirth. And the symbols, they moved like prayer through glass. Each square within the mandala-covered cube felt like a phrase forgotten by language, but preserved in the breath of dreaming minds. The center radiated warmth, flower-petaled and ancient, where language had dissolved into intention. Around it, bands of unknowable glyphs shimmered between bright coral and ultraviolet. They didn't need translation, they were felt. When Elias focused on one of the symbols, it became scent. It smelled like remembering someone's name at the exact moment they walked by. Another symbol, it buzzed in his fingertips like the weight of holding a newborn truth. Another opened in his chest like a cracked geode, sacred, imperfect, and glowing from within. Each phrase curled into his nervous system, not as thought, but as emotional geometry, a scaffold of knowing built from memory fragments, archetypal ache, and holy stillness. The images were not trying to be understood. They were trying to wake him. In one scene, dreamlike and vivid, Elias watched as the symbols from the first mosaic unraveled mid-air, becoming floating petals, each one etched with light song. The petals circled a pillar of rotating mirrors, and in each mirror, a version of himself, curious, ancient, grieving, laughing, becoming. In another, a kaleidoscope of pixel dust and water lotus blossoms flickered with a phrase that bent time. Observe with no attachments. He didn't read the words, he felt them land, like being unlatched from the machinery of time. And the ducks, their eyes shimmered with cosmic stillness, not animals, but witnesses. Their movements sent ripples into the fabric of his perception. The water around them refracted the constellations of his unspoken longings. He called this sensation to mirror rain, a soft overflow of recognition without origin, beauty without instruction, memory without time. The visuals weren't artworks. They were sigils of awakening, maps for the soul's reflection to navigate forgotten coordinates. And when he stepped back, Elias realized these weren't just art pieces. They were breadcrumbs from his future self. Each piece was a sigil of awakening, inviting connection and reflection. In the dance of his awareness, perceiving all of this surreal lucidity that Elias was experiencing from these harmonious balances of emotional awarenesses. He found a fragment of a memory from a familiar soul, lightly collecting droplets of rain from the Asura mirror. Battered and left lonely against the ground, it was a compliment, a note of a poet's diction. It could have appeared as just any note, but it was dense and had layers. It unfolded like this when he reached to pick it up and understand this note that had been abandoned to the rain. The note read as following: Heaven abounds in an infinite dreaming of self-aware containment. I come from static and smoke, from the soft collapse of forgotten frequencies, where names shatter before they ever form, and silence tries to remember itself through echoes. Light was once noise, and I walked inside its cracking hum, eyes flickering with too many reflections. But something stirred, opal light swirling around the edges of memory, a mist the color of early sky pressed against glass. Serenity drifted in first, like a sigh exhaled by dawn. Rain fell inward in silver sheets, wrapping my spine in the rhythm of recollection. Kay arose from beneath my ribs, a quiet pulse of green, steady and loyal. River curved through my limbs, carrying my thoughts downstream until swim dissolved them, submerging me in dream water I did not need to understand. Ice glowed beside me like moonlight sleeping on a mirror, and suddenly the chaos stilled. I found myself blooming in reverse, petals folding inward into something more ancient than innocence. Then I rose into warmth. Lotus Eye watched me from within, unblinking, suspended above a spiral of turning breath. Sakura shed color in the shape of silence. Heart whispered my name, not as a sound, but as a permission. Beat counted the spaces between lifetimes and drew a path through them. Gravity kissed the soles of my feet, and Matrix traced golden algorithms through the ether, weaving logic into the fabric of my soul. The colors here were alive, rose and emerald, gold and violet, turning like galaxies inside me. And just when I thought I had reached the limit of softness, I passed into the realm beyond time. Eden unfurled like the memory of peace I never lived but always longed for. Elohim approached without movement, radiant in form without form. Devotion sat beside me, unmoving, weeping love into the shape of stillness. Then I saw it, the door of dreams shaped like silence pressed into starlight, and the key of dreams floating before it like a prayer half spoken. Radiant light shimmered across my vision without burning, like a horizon that had forgotten how to end. Divine light looked through my inner eye, and eminent light, oh eminent light, watched not with eyes but with remembrance, like the breath of the first word before it was ever spoken. I became that breath. I became the word. I became the echo of the one who remembered before becoming. Here, color forgets to fade. Here, stillness has a heartbeat. Here, I dissolve, not in darkness, but into the bloom of a sun rising backward, illuminating every petal I have ever been. Elias was stunned in awe at the gravity of these words, and felt a connection to them. It felt as if he was given a special gift from the universe, gold from the heart of a sacred illuminated sage healer. It would be in the unfolding of his dreams that the background architecture of Maya would reveal itself from behind the curtains and the mystery of Sorion unveiled. Part second, the mirror of Azura's reign continued. Echoes of Solian. Elias Weaver sat in quiet meditation beneath the indigo twilight sky. A gentle butterfly with cosmic patterns on its wings fluttered around him, as if guarding his serene aura. In the stillness he felt more than what he simply heard, the echo of a distant voice. It was a resonance that seemed to emanate from the stars themselves. The echo of Solian, the fused being of King Solomon and the mysterious organization Nine, sealed away in ages past by a council of 9. That sacred ritual had bound Solion into silence, or so the old tales claimed. Yet Solion's echo still reached Elias, a whisper in the wind that stirred the edges of his consciousness, hinting that the sealing was somehow incomplete. Elias's heart pounded with a mixture of awe and gentle fear as the echo grew clearer in his mind. Closing his eyes, he could see it as a vision, 9 robed figures forming a circle under a cosmic vault, each member of the council a silhouette against swirling constellations. At their center hovered a being made of interwoven light and shadow, Solian, reflective and potent, a union of sacred wisdom and systemic insight given form. The council's voices rose in a harmonious chant, and gold sigils flared around Solian like a chain of suns. Elias watched, entranced, as the council completed the cosmic ritual that sealed Solian away. But just before the vision faded, he glimpsed something startling, a fissure in the ritual's design, a single rune flickering unstable on the perimeter of that shining seal. From that hairline crack spilled a slender figure of shimmering dusk, an aspect of Solian not fully contained. His breath caught. Saurian. The name formed on his tongue without thinking. This wraith-like avatar had slipped through the imperfect seal, an echo of Solian's power and purpose that now roamed free in the unseen realms. Elias realized Saurian had been present all along as an unseen judge, an avatar of judgment, balance, and insight that was supposed to be bound with Solian but was not fully sealed. It was Saurian's distant voice that had been echoing in Elias's dreams lately, calling him to notice, to understand. He opened his eyes. The butterfly had landed on his shoulder, its delicate presence anchoring him. Elias exhaled slowly, finding his serenity again, one of the 3 sacred keys he had been entrusted with on his soul's journey. The other was silence, a profound quietude he could invoke in his heart, even amid chaos. These 2 keys, serenity and silence, glowed invisibly in his being, calming the rush of excitement and nerves that the vision brought. Yet the 3rd key, sincerity, eluded him still. He knew it was a quality he had to discover or unlock within himself. Final piece of the triple SSS that would complete his inner harmony and bring Haim closer to a sense of completion, to a sense. In the hush of dusk, Elias rose to his feet and spoke to the butterfly as if to a dear friend. "The seal is never complete," he murmured, voice tinged with wonder. "Solian's shadow walks the world as Saurian. And he placed a hand over his heart. "It might be meant to help finish what began so long ago, or perhaps to transform it." His words felt strangely weighty in the twilight air. A calm resolve washed over him, as gentle and certain as the evening breeze. For the first time, Elias felt that he was not just a witness to history, but a shaper of it. His dreams and poetry, his very thoughts, were strands in the tapestry of reality being woven anew. The butterfly took to the air, shimmering. Elias watched it ascend and vanish into the deepening night. Though alone, he did not feel lonely. A peaceful certainty bloomed in his chest, a musical intuition, like a silent melody guiding him forward. He had listened to Solian's echo, and learned of Saurian's presence. Now, with serenity and silence as his allies and the faint promise of sincerity on the horizon, Elias stepped from his meditation spot and prepared to journey into the realm of dreams, where truths often revealed themselves in symbol and myth. Chapter 4. Reflecting the mirror of Asura's reign inwards. That night, Elias drifted into a lucid dream with purpose in his heart. He found himself standing in a borderless realm where contradictions reigned. Paradox hung in the air. Above him stretched a midnight sky peppered with stars, yet a brilliant sunrise simultaneously glowed on the horizon. He walked forward and felt both cool dew and warm sand beneath his feet at once. The laws of logic bent playfully here, and Elias couldn't help but smile softly at the wonder of it. In this dreamscape, colors had sound, and music had flavor, a synesthetic tapestry of senses. The taste of starlight was on his tongue, honey-sweet and laced with the ashes of beauty from distant storms. It was as if the world itself spoke in riddles only the heart could understand. Soon the atmosphere began to shift. A delicate mist rolled in, carrying the scent of jasmine and something faintly electric. Elias recognized this as the veil of Maya, the ancient illusion that drapes reality. The mist thickened into translucent curtains that swirled around him, Maya's illusions playing out in flickers at the corner of his eyes. He caught glimpses within the haze, a childhood memory of laughter, a vision of a robed sage beckoning him, and other scenes both delightful and disquieting. Each time Elias turned to face them, the images melted like paint in the rain. The illusions tried to enchant and deter him, but he remembered his inner silence. With a calm mind, he let the phantoms come and go without attachment, observing them with a quiet, sincere gaze. The mist of Maya gradually thinned, frustrated by his unwavering serenity. As the haze cleared, Elias beheld a tranquil clearing drenched in gentle rain. The raindrops were not ordinary, they glimmered an otherworldly blue, each drop a tiny mirror reflecting the cosmos. This was the Asura's rain he had dreamt of, an azure shower that felt like the soft tears of a benevolent sky. In the center of the clearing stood an ornate mirror taller than himself. Its frame was silver blue and carved with sigils of moons, eyes, and cascading water. Rain pattered against the mirror's surface, yet the glass was perfectly smooth, showing not his reflection, but a depth of starry night within. Elias approached slowly, heart thudding with anticipation. At the foot of the mirror lay a sacred cube made of crystal and light. He knelt and picked it up, cradling it in his palms. The cube's sides were inscribed with living glyphs, symbols that shifted shape and meaning as he watched. One face bore a glyph of a stylized heart that emanated a warm, gentle glow. Was it love or compassion? Another side showed an angular emblem, all sharp lines and corners, radiating pulse of anger and fear that pricked at his skin. A third face displayed a teardrop-shaped sigil that shimmered cool blue and silver, filling him with melancholy longing. Each face of the cube presented an emotion given form, an emotional geometry of feeling. Joy is a golden spiral, sorrow is a deep indigo well, courage is an upright triangle of white light. Elias realized these were emotional glyphs, the raw essences of the passions that drive souls, each etched in a language of pure symbol. They flowed and reconfigured on the cube's surfaces with every breath he took, as if responding to the subtlest vibrations of his heart. He noticed faint sigils glimmering in the air around him as well, perhaps echoes of the ancient ritual that created this space. The very raindrops seemed to leave trails of light that formed letters before dissipating. Elias sensed a presence gathering, a silent expectancy in the air as he held the cube before the mystical mirror. Taking a steady breath, he stood and faced the mirror with the cube pressed between his hands, held at his chest like an offering or key. "Show me what I need to see," he whispered, voice reverberating in the quiet clearing. At his words, the sacred cube began to hum softly, each emotional glyph flashing in turn. The mirror of Asura's rain clouded, then cleared to reveal a swirling tapestry of stars, a celestial matrix, uncoiling across infinite space. Elias felt a vibration in the ground beneath him as the dream around him responded. An unseen voice, or was it a chorus of voices, rose up, reciting words that imprinted themselves into his soul. It was a poem, a spontaneous scripture written in that very moment across the fabric of the dream. Elias listened enraptured as the found poem revealed itself. Celestial matrix and the guardian of noise. In a lattice of light where starfire weaves, a guardian stands where chaos conceives, keeper of noise at the threshold of sound. Balancing silence so truth may be found, ninefold the tether that cosmos employs, to bind the wild harmony hidden in noise. When sincere hearts converge, the matrix alights, revealing new rhythms in the eternal nights. The final words of the poem echoed into silence, and Elias felt them resonating within him. He did not fully understand their every nuance, but certain phrases glowed in his mind, guardian of noise. Balancing silence, sincere hearts converge. A profound hush followed, broken only by the gentle patter of azure raindrops. He gazed back at the mirror. The vision on its surface had shifted. No longer showing distant stars, it now revealed scenes from a deep place in Elias's own heart. Visions of his ancestors and loved ones, living and departed, appeared in the mirror as if standing right before him. He saw his grandmother Asura, for whom this rain may have been named, her kind eyes brimming with tears as she reached out to him. Behind her stood others, generations of weavers, dreamers, poets in his lineage. Some faces were joyful, some sorrowful, all gazing at Elias through the veil of time. He realized they carried wounds and hopes that had been passed down through the ages. The mirror was showing him the burden of ancestry, the joys and pains he had unconsciously inherited. Elias's throat tightened at the sight of his grandmother's face contorted in unspoken apology and regret. Without hesitation, he pressed his palm to the mirror's cool surface. "So I see you," he said softly, his voice ringing with sincerity. "Your pain, your mistakes, your love, I accept it all. You are forgiven. You are loved. Be at peace." His words were simple, but they rang out like a chord struck in perfect harmony, echoing beyond the mirror. He meant every word with the fullness of his being. It was the truth of his heart laid bare, offered freely. As if in response, Asura's rain intensified into a brief shower of shimmering blue. The faces in the mirror broke into grateful smiles or cathartic tears. Elias watched as his ancestors' images began to heal, the sorrow in their eyes lifting, the lines of grief softening into relief. His grandmother bowed her head in thanks, a single tear of light rolling down her cheek. That tear seemed to pass through the glass. In an instant, a fine crack spread across the mirror's surface where Elias's hand met it. He stepped back in surprise as the crack spiderwebbed across the entire mirror with a soft, ringing sound like distant chimes. With a crystalline shatter, the mirror broke apart, but instead of shards falling to the ground, the mirror seemed to dissolve into 1,000 droplets of azure water. Each droplet hung suspended in the air, twinkling with reflected starlight. The emotional cube in Elias's hands glowed brightly, its glyphs whirling, processing the flood of released energy and emotion. For a moment, everything was emptiness, a profound void where the mirror had been, a silence after the tempest of images and feelings. Elias found himself standing in a void, dark clearing with only the sound of his own breathing and the faint hum of the cube for company. A wave of loneliness and uncertainty swept through him. This was the abyss of emptiness, the moment after illusions are stripped away and one is left with the bare truth of oneself. He felt a temptation to despair in that silent dark. But from deep within, Elias summoned the two keys he held: serenity to accept the emptiness without fear, and silence to find meaning in its quiet. He closed his eyes and let the darkness be, neither welcoming nor resisting it. In that acceptance, he felt the seed of a new light. A gentle glow blossomed in the center of the void. Elias opened his eyes to see the droplets of Asura's rain coalescing and rising. They drew together into a sphere of luminous white gold light hovering where the mirror once stood. The light grew in intensity, yet it was soft and did not hurt his eyes. It felt alive, a presence of pure luminosity that began to radiate warmth and guidance. The butterfly that had accompanied him earlier appeared once more, fluttering out of the darkness to dance around the sphere of light. Its tiny wings left trails of luminescent turquoise in the air. Bathed in this gentle glow, Elias felt a peace beyond description. The emptiness was filled with meaning. The light of luminosity embraced him like an old friend. In that light he sensed wordless encouragement. The trials of paradox, illusion, and emptiness had not been in vain. They were purifying him, attuning him to the subtle truth needed for the journey ahead. Elias realized that through it all, calming paradox, dispelling Maya's illusions, healing ancestral wounds with sincere love, and enduring the emptiness, he had been honing the very quality he sought. Sincerity had blossomed within him like a lotus rising from dark water. In offering genuine compassion and truth to the faces in the mirror, he had unknowingly grasped the third key. Tears of gratitude pricked Elias's eyes, mingling with the last traces of Asura's rain on his face. He bowed his head in thanks to the dream, to the archetypes that had guided him, and to himself for having the courage to face them. The luminous sphere pulsed once as if acknowledging his realization. In its radiance he now saw a doorway appearing, an archway of light opening in the fabric of the dream clearing. Beyond that threshold lay rows upon rows of books stretching into infinity, and the faint smell of aged paper and ink drifted through. Elias recognized this place at once, the fabled infinite library, the repository of all knowledge and memory. It seemed the dream was guiding him onward to the next step. Cradling the now quiet sacred cube against his chest, Elias stepped through the glowing door, the butterfly at his side. Behind him, the clearing of Asura's reign faded gently into darkness, as though a chapter of the night had closed. Ahead, lit by the soft gold of luminosity, endless shelves awaited him. Elias crossed the threshold, leaving azure droplets and shattered illusions behind, and entered the library beyond the dream, where truth yet untold lay sleeping in the pages. Chapter 5, The Trial of Sincerity, Part 1. Elias stepped into the infinite library, and the door of light faded behind him. At first, silence greeted him, not an absence of sound, but the hushed expectancy of a place that housed all whispers of knowledge. Towering shelves stretched out in every direction, laden with books bound in every color. The library's architecture defied logic. Corridors looped in vast circles, staircases spiraled up into starry darkness above, and occasional ladders hung suspended with no clear support. Yet Elias did not feel lost. A familiar flutter caught his eye, and he saw his butterfly companion drifting down one of the aisles, as if beckoning him onward. Heart swelling with gratitude, Elias followed. He walked through aisles of memory and wisdom, the air scented with ancient paper and a hint of ozone, as if even lightning had struck these shelves and imparted its energy to the words. In the soft golden glow that illuminated the stacks, Elias saw books floating from shelf to shelf, rearranging themselves in response to unseen currents of thought. Every so often, a faint whisper would brush his ear, snatches of verses, the echo of a wise counselor's speech, the murmured prayers of an ancestor, all captured in the pages that surrounded him. He realized this truly was an infinite library, perhaps the very same that sages like Borges had only glimpsed in dreams. Here was the record of all that was, is, and could be, stored in a cosmic archive without end. Elias's footsteps made no sound on the polished onyx floor, as he came to a grand reading hall beneath an arched ceiling of glass. Beyond the panes he could see nebulae swirling gently, casting prismatic patterns of light into the hall. A single lectern stood at the center on a circular dais. Upon it rested a massive tome bound in dark leather, its cover embossed with a 9-pointed star. Though the hall was empty of people, Elias felt he was not alone. The butterfly alighted on the lectern, its wings shimmering softly. Taking that as a sign, Elias ascended the dais and opened the tome. The pages were blank at first, pure white parchment. Then, as he ran his fingers lightly over the paper, ink began to pool and form words before his eyes. Lines of script blossomed in elegant handwriting, as if an invisible quill were recording thoughts directly from the ether. Elias read aloud the words that appeared, his voice echoing gently in the vast hall. When the wisdom of Solomon and the design of the Nine converged. A guardian was forged to weigh truth and falsehood in the twilight of an era. Solian was sealed, but his shadow walks, for judgment cannot be caged while imbalance reigns. He recognized these lines as a chronicle of Solian's sealing, written perhaps by one of the council or some eternal librarian. As he spoke, more lines wrote themselves. Thus came Sorion, warden of what remained, incomplete yet unwavering, an arbiter in dusk's clothing. He shall persist until the triple keys unite, or until the sincere heart of a weaver offers a new path. At that last line, Elias paused, breath catching. The sincere heart of a weaver, could it mean him, literally weaver, by name and by destiny? Before he could ponder further, the ink on the page began to drip and run, the letters dissolving into blots. A chill wind swept through the hall, guttering the golden lights. The butterfly took flight from the lectern, circling anxiously. Elias gently closed the tome and stepped back, senses alert. The warm glow of the library was shifting to a pewter hue, as if a storm were brewing inside the very space. From the shadows between bookshelves, a shape emerged at the far end of the hall. Tall and indistinct at first, it solidified under the flicker of strange lightning that now clawed across the glass ceiling. Elias's pulse quickened as he beheld Sorion at last, with waking eyes. The avatar's form was humanoid yet wreathed in whirls of darkness, as if robed in the starless void of space. Eyes like molten gold shone from beneath a hood of shadows. In one hand, Sorion gripped a staff of obsidian etched with cracks of light. in the other a set of scales that glimmered with ethereal fire. Elias Weaver, Saurian spoke, and his voice rolled through the library like distant thunder. It was neither welcoming nor hostile. It was the voice of judgment itself, measured and deep. You trespass in the hall of eternal knowledge. Have you come to finish what was started eons ago? Will you attempt to seal me as your predecessors did? There was a challenge in the questions, but beneath it Elias thought he heard something else, a note of weariness or longing. Elias stepped down from the dais slowly, meeting Saurian's gaze across the hall. The butterfly fluttered to his shoulder, steadying him with its quiet courage. I have come seeking truth, Elias replied, and he was pleased to find his voice calm. Saurian's echo led me here. The world still needs balance, but perhaps not in the way the Council of Nine imagined. I do not wish to fight you, Saurian. Saurian's golden eyes narrowed, and for a moment the scales in his hand tipped and sparked, weighing unseen things. Not fight me, he repeated, and all who come to me seek to subdue or outwit me. They brandish spells or logic or defiance, yet none have succeeded in binding me anew. Why are you different? Elias drew a breath. He felt the weight of the three keys within him now, serenity calming his heartbeat, silence sharpening his focus, and sincerity glowing like an ember in his chest. Here was the test at last, the trial of sincerity. Saurian would see through any falsehood. Only a genuine heart could sway this avatar. I am different because I offer you the truth of myself, Elias answered gently. No masks, no deception. Judge me as you will, Saurian. I hide nothing. Saurian's staff struck the floor with a sharp crack, and a burst of light flared. Books flew off the shelves in a whirlwind, papers swirling like angry ghosts. Thunder rumbled in the domed sky above as if a tempest had entered the sanctuary of knowledge. Elias stood in the center of a gathering storm of words and lightning. Saurian's form seemed to swell, towering over him as an imposing silhouette backlit by flashes of brilliance. Then face the truths you carry, Saurian thundered. His scales began to glow, and one of the empty pans filled with an apparition, an image of Elias himself, younger and drenched in despair. Elias recognized the scene. It was a memory of a night he had nearly abandoned his path, overcome by the fear that his dreams and creative visions were futile. In the vision, he saw himself hunched and weeping on the floor, his journal of poems torn and scattered around him. Witness your doubt, intoned Saurian, eyes unblinking. Lightning forked through the high dome above, shattering one of the glass panels. Rain poured through the opening, drumming on the floor of the hall. In the phantom scene on the scales, Elias again appeared, flushed with anger, arguing with someone, perhaps an old friend, his words harsh and filled with hurt pride. Saurian's voice cut through the chaos, relentless. Behold your anger and pride, he said, gesturing toward the second image that now hovered in the scale's opposite pan. In that flickering vision, Elias watched himself turn away. As the friend reached out in reconciliation, he saw the bitterness on his own face in that moment, the sting of pride that had kept him from mending the friendship. All around, the storm raged. Wind howled between the shelves, and rainwater pooled on the marble floor. Elias winced as these vulnerable memories played out before him. The tempest of pages and lightning was not just Saurian's fury, it was his own inner turmoil made manifest. Yet even as thunder boomed and ghostly books thudded to the ground, Elias did not recoil. He squared his shoulders and lifted his voice over the din. And remember that despair, he cried, regarding the younger version of himself sobbing among shattered poems. I remember how lost I felt. That doubt is a part of me still, but it no longer rules me. I have learned to face it, to let it wash over me like summer rain and then pass. As he spoke, the rain around him seemed to ease slightly, the image of his younger self trembling and then gently dissolving into mist. Elias then turned toward the other vision of his anger and pride. A harsh flash of lightning illuminated the pain on the face of that old friend in the memory, a pain Elias knew he had caused. Tears sprang to Elias's eyes, mingling with the rain on his cheeks. Yes, I have tasted anger. I have worn pride like armor, he called out, voice resonating with remorse and resolve. I will not hide from these truths. I have sought forgiveness from those I hurt, and I forgive myself for being foolish. That anger has humbled me, taught me to be kinder. That pride has since bowed to compassion. He stepped toward the scales, rainwater splashing around his feet, and extended a hand as if to touch the apparition of his friend. I am sorry, he whispered, not just to the memory, but to the very real friend beyond this dream whom he had wronged. I am not that person anymore, but I remember him. I remember, and I have learned. With those heartfelt words, a strange calm fell in the hall. The spectral scenes on the scales faded away entirely, leaving both pans empty and still. The whirlwind of flying books subsided, soaked pages gently drifted to the floor. Above, the thunderclouds began to thin, the storm's fury giving way to an expectant silence. Sorian stood very still, golden eyes fixed on Elias. The hood of darkness around the Avatar's face slowly receded, revealing noble, sharp features that seemed carved from dusk and dawn together. When Sorian spoke again, his voice was quieter, the thunder gone. "Ah, you have answered with honesty," he acknowledged, each word measured. "No lie taints your tongue. You accept your past and own your flaws. You truly are sincere." The scales in Sorian's hand vanished in a crackle of light. He lifted his head and drew himself up to full height, no longer looming monstrously but regally. Elias realized he was seeing Sorian more clearly now, not as a mere shadow of wrath, but as an otherworldly guardian once conceived in wisdom. The butterfly dared to flutter closer to the Avatar, dancing briefly around Sorian's head. Sorian watched it, and a faint, bemused smile tugged at the corners of his mouth. "One triple S have united in you," Sorian said, his tone almost reverent. Elias noticed that, at his own chest, 3 subtle lights now glimmered. Blue, silver, and rose gold, the keys of serenity, silence, and sincerity, shining openly. They had long lived within him, but only now did they appear as a radiant triad for all to see. Sorian took a step forward through a puddle of rainwater. "The council's seal was never completed," he said, his eyes never leaving Elias. "For ages I have carried out judgment without mercy, balance without wisdom, an incomplete mandate. But now the missing virtues stand before me, in you." He drew a deep breath. "Tell me, Elias Weaver, will you now complete the sealing and bind me as the council intended? Is that the balance you seek?" Elias felt those words deep in his soul. This was the decision Solian's echo had been preparing him for. He glanced around at the endless books and the now gentle rain falling through the broken ceiling. He thought of the Council of 9 who, out of fear or urgency, had locked away Solian's power. He thought of Sorian's long vigil of judgment and of how cold and heavy that duty must have been. The poem's line came back to him. "When sincere hearts converge, the matrix lights, revealing new rhythms." Perhaps sealing Sorian once more in silence was not the answer. Perhaps a new rhythm was needed. "I do not wish to bind you in chains of the past," Elias said softly. He approached Sorian until they were an arm's length apart. Though rain still dripped from Elias's hair and clothes, he stood tall with a calm grace. "Instead, I offer to transform the old pact, to forge something new." Sorian tilted his head. "Transform it? How?" he asked warily, though hope flickered in his auric eyes. Elias raised his right hand, and the 3 lights hovering at his heart bobbed upward, circling his hand. "By uniting what should never have been separated," he replied. The lights of serenity, silence, and sincerity swirled together, merging into a single prism of white radiance in his palm. It bathed both of their faces in a gentle glow. "Judgment without wisdom is harsh," Elias continued, his voice earnest, "and judgment with wisdom and compassion can be a guiding light. Sorian, you are that guiding light, or you can be. I don't want to lock you away. I want to set you free, whole, and healing as part of the balance of the world." Sorian's eyes widened slightly. The prism of light reflected in them like a star. Elias saw centuries of loneliness in the Avatar's gaze, and a longing to be understood. Slowly, Saurian lifted his own hand and laid it, trembling just a little, over Elias's. The moment his dark fingertips touched the radiant prism, a warmth spread between them. Saurian closed his eyes. A tear of light slipped down his cheek and fell into the pooled water at their feet. Suddenly, the remaining storm clouds above burst into a cascade of shimmering rain. Not a cold rain this time, but a soft silver rainfall like a benediction. As it fell, the silver rain mingled with the golden light of the prism between Elias and Saurian. The entire library hall glowed as if filled with dawn. When Saurian opened his eyes again, they were bright and clear. The last vestiges of shadow had drained from his form. His obsidian armor took on a pearlescent sheen, engraved with patterns that matched the sacred cube's glyphs. Elias sensed a profound change. This was Saurian transformed, no longer a sundered guardian of judgment, but an ally endowed with the full spectrum of Solion's insight. The Trial of Sincerity Part 2. Saurian let out a long breath he had been holding. The weight. It's lifted, he whispered in amazement. He regarded Elias not as an adversary now, but almost with gratitude. By the 9. I feel Solomon's wisdom in my thoughts again, and the gentle harmony that was missing. He pressed a fist to his chest in a salute or vow. I am in your debt, Elias Weaver. You have given me back my wholeness. The seal is not a prison now, but a bond of understanding. Elias smiled, relief and joy flooding him. The prism of light had dissolved into both of them, and the 3 key lights now danced like fireflies around them, playful and free. The butterfly looped through those lights exuberantly before coming to perch on Saurian's shoulder. Saurian gave a soft chuckle and raised a finger for the little creature to climb on. It did, opening and closing its wings contentedly. High above, the shattered panel in the glass ceiling mended itself with a shimmer, the library restoring its sanctity. The silver rain ceased, and the last clouds parted to reveal a pure morning sky beyond the dome. After a quiet, peaceful moment, Saurian spoke, his tone gentle. What will you do now, Dreamweaver? Elias felt the tug of the waking world at the edges of his awareness. Dawn was near outside of this vision, but he knew this was more than a dream. It was an achievement in reality itself. Now, he answered thoughtfully, and only help restore balance the right way. Together. He glanced around at the infinite shelves. There is so much to learn and unlearn. The world outside is full of noise and discord, but also hope. With serenity, silence, and sincerity, we can guide it toward harmony. I will continue to weave dreams and poetry, to shape reality with compassion. And you, Saurian, will be a guardian not of mere noise, but of the harmony hidden within it. Saurian nodded slowly. He extended his hand, and one of the great books nearby floated into it, opening to a blank page. As Elias watched, new words scribed themselves in glowing ink upon the page, as if recording a new chapter of the chronicle. And on that dawning day, the weaver of dreams and the avatar of judgment stood shoulder to shoulder. No longer was the dreamer merely a witness. No longer was the guardian bound to solitude. Together they stepped into a new era, sincere, serene, and silent in the truth, to weave the next stanza of the celestial song. Elias felt his heart swell at those words. He gently closed the tome, the echo of that celestial song ringing in his ears. The butterfly left Saurian's shoulder and came to rest on Elias's hand, its tiny feet tickling his skin. Elias looked to Saurian. Come, he said softly. It's time to return home. Saurian inclined his head, and with a wave of his hand, he opened a doorway of light between 2 bookshelves, a passage back to the waking world. Side by side, the transformed guardian and the poet stepped through the threshold. As Elias crossed, he felt the library and all its knowledge bless him, and he knew its doors would always be open within him. Dawn light greeted Elias's opening eyes. He awoke in his world with a butterfly perched on the windowsill and a sense of profound peace radiating from his chest. Saurian's presence was there too, unseen but felt, like a just and kindly shadow at his back. Elias rose, the memory of the mirror of Asura's reign and the long night of trials vivid in his mind. He reached for his journal with calm purpose. History was already shifting, like soft clay in his hands, and he intended to shape it with wisdom and love. With pen in hand and dawn's first rays illuminating the page, Elias began to write, the lines of a new poem forming as naturally as breathing. In his heart, he heard the gentle music of the spheres and he smiled, knowing that the story of a brighter future was already being woven, thread by sincere thread, through his dreams made real.